Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is part 2 of a two-part series on managing the website look and feel in ClubExpress. 2 weeks ago, we did a webinar that was an introduction to an overview of the tools, and we looked primarily at the website look and feel module, and specifically about the site builder tools within the website look and feel module. So the website look and feel module has a whole bunch of things that allow you to configure lots of areas of the system. And today we'll do a little review of that because we're going to be using part of it to demonstrate other functionality. And we will be looking at some of the other modules. Now, for those of you who are new to our webinar series, we do a couple of webinars a month. Some of them are general overviews of ClubExpress. Some of them are overviews targeted towards a specific audience, like bicycle clubs or car clubs or particular verticals. And the ones that I do mostly are sort of deep dives into particular pieces of functionality. What we'll be doing today is one of those. But instead of going into one particular module, today we're going to talk about a couple of different modules. So we're going to do a little introduction like this, and then I'm going to do a demonstration. And at the end, we will open it up for questions and answers. Now, that said, Erica is on the line, and Erica is in our support team, and she's going to be monitoring the chat. So let's take care of a little housekeeping. All of the microphones are muted except for mine and Erica's. We encourage you to ask questions along the way. You don't have to wait to the end to ask questions. And Erica will do her best to either answer the question directly in the chat. And if it's something that I'm demonstrating, she may break in and say, Alan, would you take a look at this? There's a question about such and such. But even if she answers the questions, we'll revisit those questions at the end for the benefit of the people that are watching it during the recording. And speaking of which, the recording will be available, as are all of the recordings. If you go to the clubexpress.com page and click on the cool stuff link in the upper right corner of the screen, there's a webinars tab on the left-hand side. And at the bottom of the webinars tab, there's a section on recorded webinars. Similar to that, on the video tutorials tab, there's a section on recorded tutorials. The tutorials are also available from your support tab in the control panel. And there's a whole list of the tutorials, both recent tutorials, also sorted by tab. And as usual, if you are a ClubExpress user, and particularly if you like ClubExpress, we'd appreciate it if you would go to one of these review sites. Go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these review sites and enter a review of ClubExpress so other people can have the benefit of your experience using ClubExpress. So today, we're going to be concentrating on some of the tools that you use to control the look and feel of your website. Now, there is a module called Website Look and Feel, and that's one of the ones we'll be looking at. We went into quite a bit of detail with that 2 weeks ago. That video is available. If I go to clubexpress.com, if we go to the cool stuff page and we go to blogs, you'll see that I wrote a blog a couple of days ago called Managing Your Website Look and Feel Part 1, where I show how you can get to the recordings. And I'm showing the tutorials that I'm working on currently. And so we have a general overview of the tools and content areas. There's one for managing font. I'm working on one right now called Site Builder Tools. And then we're going to be talking about these other ones, managing common content and mobile setup. And 2 of these are already complete, but they've not been published yet. I may publish these, but I really want to publish them as a set because you'll see that we have here this part A, customizing the look and feel of your website, which is an overview, and another one coming up called part B, which is about fonts. And we'll be talking about fonts today. So I'm working on the site editor tools and the common content ones. So I really want to publish them as a set because they each say that there are other ones in the set. So these will all come out together, hopefully in the next couple of days. Let's talk about website look and feel. Your website is one of the main ways that you interact with your members and with prospective members or members of the public. And we're already logged in as an administrator. And the website has a couple of different areas. And I went through this 2 weeks ago, but if we zoom out a little bit, you'll see that we have a couple of areas here. And I have a graphic that sort of outlines the areas. It's important to review this because some of the things we're going to deal with in the next hour will make reference to these things. Most of the time, you realize you have this red box here, which is the header area that appears on every page. We've got an optional background, which is usually a color, or maybe you have a picture. That's that green area here, and it goes behind your page content, which has this orange border around it. There's an area for menus, and the menus will either be across the top or down the left side of the page. And it's important to know that you have the choice of this because that also may determine the possible layouts that you have. There's a green area here for potential options that you configure with the website options as to whether or not you want to do things like add a link to add me to your mailing list, or whether or not you want to show your social media icons. And then there's an area where the member can log in or manage their profile. And then there's this thing called common content. And common content is content that appears on every page. And it can appear above your header. It can appear above your menus, say between your menu and your header. There can be various areas around the layout where it appears. It could appear above your footer. But just get an idea that in addition to your page content area, you have the capability of putting other content on. And so deciding how you're laying out the page, where your menus go, where your common content goes and such, that all goes into the website look and feel. We are on a demo club, which is the Northwest Balloon Club. And in order to do most of the website look and feel manipulation or configuration, you click on Control Panel. And as I mentioned the last webinar, there's a whole bunch of modules here. The ones at the top mostly deal with content, the custom pages you're going to put on the website, photo albums, documents, events that go into the calendar and all that. So that's content related. The middle's got to do with website reporting. And the ones at the bottom here have to do with mostly with look and feel. Some have to do with the domain links and such, but they may have to do with the graphics that you would use for logos or the menus that you're going to present. And we've done separate webinars on those. And last week, we looked at the website look and feel. So I'm going to click on website look and feel, and we go into preview mode. Now, in this particular demo site, we have disabled the apply and revert button. So that what I'm showing you right now is just a picture of the website. And your site, you'll have both an apply and a revert mode. So all the things that I'm going to be doing today, I'm not going to apply anything. I want a sort of a steady state, our normal look and feel for this particular site. So on the website look and feel module, we're in preview mode, and anything that I do in preview mode, nothing gets applied to the site until, in your case, you would just hit the apply button. So I'm going to be making some changes and reverting back several times so that I can demonstrate a few things. The first thing to understand is that we have a bunch of tools here. And the two that are going to be mostly related to the things we're talking about today are template, well, actually three things: template, layout, and text styles. And template has to do with, it's an aggregation of a menu style, page layout. It's got some default graphics and things like that. And when you choose a template, say right now, if I were to choose a different template, well, yeah, let's choose this template here. If I choose a template and then I go to choose a layout, these layouts will be specific to that template. And we'll go back into layout in a minute. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the control panel, back to the website look and feel, and revert. Okay. So now I'm back to the original template. Within the current template, there are different layouts. So in this particular layout, you'll see that the blue area here is for the header. This area here is for the menu. The gray area is for the page content. And the yellow areas here are for comment content boxes. This one has comment content on the left. This one has it on the right. This one has 3 comment content areas on the right. So when we start looking at common content, it's important to know there are some content areas that is specific to the layout, and there are some content areas that are not bound by the layout, like above the header or at the top of the page or above the footer. They are not limited to the layout. So that's important to note. Also, when looking at things like text styles, we have different text styles for normal text, links, headings, and things like that. When we pull down the fonts, you're going to see a list of standard fonts, but you're also going to see a list of optional fonts. So this is one of the places where those optional fonts show up. So let's go take a look at fonts. So if I go back to the control panel and I scroll down to the bottom of the website tab and I click on fonts, we get a page here that on the left-hand side has about 80 different fonts. Lots and lots and lots of different fonts. So these are fonts that are available to you for your website. On the right-hand side, you've got fonts that are currently installed on your website. So these are fonts that you have selected. And the way you would choose fonts is you can click on a font and click on this right arrow here to say send it to the right, and it shows up on the right. If you click on it, you can send it to the left. You can also use your mouse and highlight more than one. So if I hold down the control key, I can select a few of them. And then when you click on the right arrow, all of those that are selected in your list can be moved over to the right. And this is common for a lot of our select lists. So anytime you have 2 lists like this, you can usually use the mouse and the control or the shift key. If I hold down the shift key, it'll grab regions. The other thing that you can do is you can just double click on something to move it from one list to the next. So I can just double click on this Abril over here and it moves over to the right. Or you can say, I want to send everything to the left. I want to get rid of all of these and let's just bring it over to the left here. Now, one of the things that's important to note is that you really don't want to add more than 3 to 5 custom fonts to your website. And the reason for this is that when you add custom fonts and they're being used on a page, it takes a little extra time to load the fonts onto the page. The website fonts are just loaded by default for everybody. But if I decided I wanted to say, let's choose Acme, let's choose, well, I'll use Alan, but that's not the way I spell my name. And let's use something like Drops. Now, on any one of these, you can click on it and choose View. So if I click on this and choose View, it shows all of the different sizes. And if there are italics, I think it shows italics. This one doesn't have italics. If we come over on the left and select this and choose View down on the left-hand corner, it will show you the font before you move it over into the right-hand side. So these fonts can get used in a number of different places. So let's assume that I want these fonts, Acme, Allen, and Drops. And if I save this and now go into my text styles, because we're still in preview mode. I never got out of preview mode. If I go to text styles, let's see if they show up here. So we've got Acme, Allen, and Drops. So if I say for normal text, I want this to be Drops, if we look over here, you'll see that it's actually showing that all my normal text will be in that font. That would probably drive your users absolutely crazy. So let's cancel this. So where else can you use these text styles? Well, if we go back to the website page and I go into a custom page and I search for a custom page, if I want to add some text, I say, is some cool text. You click on the wrench tool here to bring up the second toolbar. And now I can pick from the list. The web-safe fonts appear at the top here, and your custom ones appear at the bottom. And of course, I can make this as big as I want. So that's one of the ways you could do this. And you can do this in most places where there's a drop down for font style, but not every place for some good reason. So before I cancel this, Erica, are there any questions about what we've done so far?
There's a question regarding if the fonts will render correctly in all browsers. And for those of you not monitoring the chat, what I answered to Doug's question was depending on the version of the browser and depending on whether it's an email or not, we have specific fonts that are email friendly because certain fonts will not show up in email, and then the emails will automatically revert to what we call email safe fonts. And we briefly went over this last week as well. And if you would like to see a list of those email safe fonts,
well, I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment.
Okay, sounds good. One question that someone had was a work in progress feature. So Alan had kind of gone over a little bit how layouts and templates, you can preview them ahead of time. You can also navigate the rest of the site while you are previewing them. Unfortunately, you can't have a work in progress feature with the look and feel with the layout and the template, but you can preview it and then you can revert it back to the original state if it's not to your liking.
And this is something that we're going to be showing in a little bit when we start talking about the common content module. So as you can see here, the drop down, as we showed, shows the web safe fonts that everybody gets and the 3 extra ones that I put in here. However, as Erica mentioned, if we go to the Communications tab and click on Emailing, and I add an email, and I bring in some text over here, and click on this. Now, if we look at the list of fonts, it's a different list of fonts, and none of the custom fonts are there. But these are all considered email safe fonts. So this pretty much guarantees that whatever you put into your email will be able to be read by email readers. And so all of these fonts are considered email safe. So we try to keep you out of trouble there. Similarly, I believe if we drag in HTML and we look at the fonts here, it's just going to be the web safe fonts. So this is even a shorter list than the text box. So we try to keep you out of trouble here. We want your emails actually to be able to be read. So the fonts are not the most exciting thing in the world, but judicious use of your fonts to put up some headings. I want my headings to be different. But the point is that the text styles that you choose for headings will appear in your site as you're navigating around. Go back to the control panel, website tab. The next item that I want to talk about is common content. And common content can be incredibly useful. So let's take a look at common content. Now, there's a couple of things I've already added here, and I'll describe what it is we've got to work with and why you may want to use it and where these things show up. So at the moment, there's a couple of different areas. And I mentioned that some of these areas are sensitive to the particular layout that you've got. Like this one down here, it says left side of site, right side of site. And it says it's not in use at the moment because the particular template that I'm using and the particular layout that I'm using does not have space reserved for this content. And if we just take a look at this content, on the left side of site, I put up something here. Oh, here's my new font, heading 1, that says we need volunteers. And I did this one in a gray background. And the right-hand side has a wheat color background. So we're not using those at the moment. But we've got one at the moment that says above the website. And above the website, it says we've updated our menu. Click on the menu at the upper right side of the screen. Now, this one is literally spanning the entire width of the browser window. And I don't find this one particularly useful. The one that I really like is the one that's called top of page. And this is the full width of your website, which may be different and likely different than the full width of the browser window. So the full width of my website right now is this area here, this white area. And in this case, what we did was we put up a little border around that says new site features. We've updated our website. Click on the menu items to see the new services. So if I save this, and we have this little button here that says activate. So right now, let's see at the top of the website, we've got the control panel, Martin Smith, and all of that. If I activate this, now we have at the top of every page, new website features. We've updated our website. Click on menu items to see the new services. So as I move around, if I click on the calendar page, or if I click on contact us. So if you had something that absolutely had to appear on every page, hey, we have a snowstorm, we're canceling tonight's meeting, or some policy change, this would be a good way of putting up content where you can manage that content in one place and it shows up every place. So let's do this. Let's go back to the control panel and go back to common content. And I'm going to turn off that. So this X here doesn't delete it, it simply deactivates it. So if you've got something where you've got content and you've got the complete editor here, and not surprisingly, you've got your fonts and you've got your complete editor here, you can edit all this and put it in any of these areas. Now, it's good to know the nature of the area that you're putting it into, because if you're putting it into an area under a left-hand menu, you want to make sure that your content will sort of fit in that area. And we'll see how that works in a few seconds.
Hi, Alan. Can I hop in just really quick?
Absolutely.
For a question was expanding upon the left and the right side of the site. That pertains to just specific layouts and templates. So the one that's currently active does not have space available on the left or right, but if you take a different template or layout, they will have available space on the side.
And that's what I'm demonstrating next.
Perfect.
You're reading my mind. The group, we're heading down the right path.
And then one quick question was the partial box around the words new site features. I believe that was custom coded by us that was inserted there. So that's not necessarily something you can easily turn on.
Well,
so I believe
yeah, this was just a little style that was put in here. And so you do have HTML that you can do if you want to do this. Similarly, in this one here that was, say, the left side of the box, I wanted a gray background here. So I went in and said, I put in a div and I said the style, background color, light gray. So, this isn't particularly fancy stuff, but it just gives you an idea. You do have control over this stuff. So as Erica said, we're going to go back into the control panel, go down to the website look and feel. If I choose a different template, let's choose, this was the template I wanted. You see we have menus on the left-hand side. And then below the menu, we have an area for common content here. And on the right-hand side, there's an area for common content here. So now if I go into the control panel and go into, you see it's even showing up here. If I go into common content, it's showing that right side top is active. The one that was left side is now called under the menu. So that's this area here. Let's just bring this up a little bit. So this is over here. Then there are other ones for right side bottom and above, right side bottom, and under menu is now, this is now called under menu. And the other one is the right side top. And so depending on the layout and depending on the template, because the templates determine what layouts are available. So if I were to go back into website look and feel, and let me revert altogether and go back into website look and feel. So for this current layout, which is the default layout for this particular website, we have one that has no content areas, common content areas. We have one that has common content area only on the left, one here that has common content area only on the right, and we have this one here that has a few content areas on the right. So as I save it now and go to the common content area, now you see it, we have one that is called V1, V2, and H1. So, and this one is called top right. So the one that was right before is now called top right. And if I go back to home, you'll see that these two are stacking now with room for a third. So the takeaway here is that your common content areas are dependent on layout. Layouts are dependent on templates because the templates determine what menu style is available for you, whether they be horizontal menus across the top of the page or vertical menus down the left-hand side of the page. And so you also, this particular site, now obviously this content area is wider than the area that we are now using for it. And along these same lines, if we go into the site editor and go into width, because we now have some additional content areas, here is where you can decide, you can click on these to decide how wide the entire site needs to be and how wide these content areas need to be. By changing the layouts and changing, in effect, the vertical columns that you have to work with, whether you have common content in menus on the left side or on the right side, you'll get slider tabs here that are relevant to the particular layout. So let's choose another template. If I choose, say, this template again, and now if I go into width, now we have a slider that controls the left hand and controls the center and controls the overall width. So you can slide these around, but it all depends on the template you've chosen, the layout within that template, and that you can do all this stuff in preview mode without letting anyone else see it. So that's important. So again, the common content is a way of putting something on every page. One of the things on the website is you can customize your home page. And I did a webinar several months ago, and you can see it in the recordings, about the home page and editing the home page. And the home page is a unique page on your site in that you have these things called content rows. And each one of these rows has a little toolbar. And we can find out if the row is active or not and who can see it. So this particular row is active and everyone can see it, meaning that everyone logged in or not can see it. And we can move the rows up or down, and we can configure them to say, okay, is it active? And is this visibility to anyone who comes to the site, or only people that are logged in, or only people who are not logged in, the public? So you might have a row that says, come join us, and have a big button to join and have a big promotion about your joining. And you only want that to be on the homepage for people that are not logged in, because you don't need to be pounding your members over the head about joining if they've already joined. So you may have something that's limited just to them. Or you might have some things that you simply only want to show to your members. So in this particular case, we have something here that says balloon safety program announced. If I come over here and I configure it, it is now inactive. If I configure it and I say it is active, and I turn this on and I go back to view the page, now that row shows up here. And this is particularly useful if you have a program, an event that happens every year, and you have some publicity on it, and all you want to do is turn it on when you want to show it and turn it off when the event is over, and then next year just come in and edit the content so that it would pertain to your current promotion. So this is the way you configure your homepage. And your homepage will display this way when you're viewing it on a mobile device in a browser. What I want to show you here is I'm going to share a different screen with you. Let me just get my phone out here. This is an iPhone, and I'm going to say new share. And so what I'm looking at now, I'm going to just refresh this. I am looking at the demo club, in this case on an iPhone in Safari. So I am looking at it in a browser. And as I scroll up and down, you'll see that we have the header area, we've got the content area, and all of this stuff, because of the way, because of the responsive design, these things are going, stacking one under the other, whereas before they were left and right next to the other. So this is very, very nice in that you can design it. And if you use the features of the editor, like two-column divisions and such, they will stack. And I have a video on the advanced content editor that talks about the responsive design. And then there is a blog post that you can look at from several months ago that talks about responsive design. So when you're in a browser on a device, I can flip the device horizontally, and now everything gets wider, but I'm going to just stay vertical for the moment. And instead of having menus across the top, if I click on the called the hamburger menu, the 3 lines at the bottom, now everything that would have been on my menu is here. And at the bottom, it says log in. So if I log in, I just need to come over here and I'll go to the same Martin Smith. And now we get whatever menu would be appropriate. In this case, say the members menu, we get the member menu. Now, one thing that I'll note is that there are no administrative tools in this view. So I'm going to go back to horizontal again for a moment. And one thing that's useful to note is that there is an icon at the bottom for desktop view. Desktop view takes it out of mobile mode. And now you'll see in the upper left corner, we've got the control panel. So now I can actually go in and administer stuff. I can check my new members and all of that. And at the bottom of the screen is an icon for mobile, which brings you back to the simplified, very responsive mobile version. The desktop view is not responsive. You may have to scroll around and things like that. Now let's talk about this mobile setup module. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And if I go into control panel and I go into mobile setup, you'll see a screen that probably not a whole lot of you have seen before. And this screen has somewhat limited utility these days. This screen was developed before the mobile responsive editor was put into the home page. So I can click on here and I can add stuff here, and it will literally replace that whole center section of the home page. I'm not going to bother doing it now because I don't really think you really want to do that. It was really necessary when the homepage used to have very wide tables and things like that. Things weren't responsive. So, but if I put a graphic here, it will simply replace whatever is in the center section, the content area of the homepage. And the only thing that will show will be the header and the footer and things like that. So I'm not going to recommend that people mess with this. Similarly, I don't recommend that people mess with the header area. And this header area is where you could have a different header. So you have one mountain range for desktop machines, another mountain range for mobile devices. I don't recommend this either. And it shows some various widths here. Again, I recommend that you leave this alone. So I cancel this. But what you might want to do is use what's called this top area called top content box and bottom content box. It might be useful to you. So if I come over here and I say top content box, and I put in something here that says this content appears below the header, and I'm just going to make this bold, and I'm going to make this 22 pixels, and I'm going to make it red. And I save that, and I activate it. So let's activate that. And I can do the same thing for the bottom. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you is that in this here, you can name that top content box. So I'm going to call this NYBC, Northwest Balloon Club Top Content. And the bottom one here, I named Even More Content. And say that this content appears above the footer, and it might be some other content that you've got. And if I enable that, and now go back up and go to my iPhone again, and now if I come here and I refresh the page, you'll see at the top of the page, there is this sort of accordion that if you click on the down arrow here, it says this content appears below the header. And you can compress that. And if I go down to the bottom, there's a section that says even more content. And if I click on that, it says this content appears above the footer. Is this a particularly useful feature at this point? I'm not sure. It's not like common content, because common content does not appear on the mobile view of your website. It appears if you go into the desktop view. The mobile view in a browser will not show your common content. So I don't know if these top content area and bottom content area is particularly useful to anybody. I just wanted to show you what this was about. So I just wanted to give you a little overview of what this is and what this was designed to do, a little bit of history. I don't think it's terribly useful, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I'm also going to turn this off, deactivate that, and deactivate that. And now return here to the control panel. In the control panel, we talked about fonts, common content, and mobile setup. We took a look at the layout areas, and I hope this gives you a little bit of a sense of how all of these tools interact. Let me just go change one thing, go back to website look and feel, and if I go to page width, I like to make page width 1100. Actually, let's leave it here for a moment. I'll show you why I don't want to leave it here. If we go into the control panel with the default page width of 960, and we go into communications and into emailing, and I go to add an emailing, when you go down to this area here, you'll see these two tabs for elements and templates. Well, it turns out there's a third tab on the right-hand side, and you wouldn't see it until you scroll over like this to see element style. However, if we changed the width to, say, 1100, and I save that, then you don't get the scroll bar because you can see the item. So And so I just want to come back over here and click on revert, make sure we go back to the steady state. There we go. Now I think communications, emailing, add emailing. There we go. So this one had the correct eyes. So Erica, any questions that we haven't already answered in the demonstration, or something that you want me to drill down on?
There's one question that asks, does our video on responsive design explain how to activate it?
Okay, there is not a video on responsive design. There is a blog post on responsive design. And let me see if I can just show you that. I need to move a toolbar out of the way so I can actually open a tab. And if I go to ClubExpress, and it turns out, no, you don't activate it. By default, we are responsive.
And I think the person may have hit enter a little too soon. They retyped the question. And the question is, does your video on responsive design explain how to get the header from the website copied to the header on the mobile site? So when you're creating the header on the mobile site, you essentially start from scratch because it will be, or it could be very different from your desktop version of the header. So you kind of start from scratch, you replace the elements, you can adjust the size, so on and so forth. There isn't a direct transfer or copy from the main one to the mobile.
Yeah, however, there is some very odd overlap. Although you can change the background image, I found that the foreground images, like the balloons that are floating in front of the foreground image, they wind up coming over. So my suggestion, and the suggestion of the design team, is don't have a separate page header for mobile. Just use the other page header because it will resize and do the things that it used to not do. So the way I found this, it turns out that when I looked at the blog post, if I looked at the cool stuff, if I open this in a new window and I clicked on blogs, I didn't see the responsive thing here. So what I did is I opened any one of them. I clicked on search blogs and I typed the word responsive, and it showed me this. So if you do that and go to the responsive web pages blog, it talks about the things that you can do to assure that your content will be responsive. So it turns out that if you have text next to a graphic, this probably won't be responsive because the customers have specifically said, I want these two things side by side. So what happens is if you have things that are columns that are like 25, 25, 25, 33, 33, 33, image float and such, they will stack. So if you have these three here side by side and you narrow the page, they will stack vertically. So you can take a look at this page here, and it tells you how to do this. I go into it quite a bit in the video on the advanced content editor, where actually demonstrates some of these things. So there isn't one on responsive design, but there is some responsive content in this one. You can go to just the YouTube and go to search for ClubExpress advanced content editor, and you'll get to this video. Other questions, Erica?
Yes. So something to clarify, there's a difference between our mobile app and then the mobile setup. So the mobile setup is where you can, and that's what Alan was going over earlier, is where you can configure the home page and set up the way you want it to look on mobile. The mobile app setup is where you actually can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, sorry, the name escapes me, and you can download it to your device. So you don't necessarily set up the mobile app, but you set up through the mobile setup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the mobile app is like any other app. You're not viewing it in a browser, but you can have an app that has been branded for your own club. And let me come over here, because not many people know about the fact that we can do an app. What I've got here is I'm just going to log in as M. Smith again. And an app is optional. And what this is, and that's downloading all the stuff for the very first time. So this looks different than the way your website appears in a browser. And this has got facilities. You can have different channels, which are kind of specialties. So you can have people that subscribe to particular channels. You can have a channel that's all members, or a channel that's only about baskets. And you can actually do things like set up meets, and where you can say, I want to show me all the people within 20 miles of where I am, and do things like that. And so all of this stuff is available with your branding. So your members can go to the App Store or the Play Store, or whatever, and download the app. And there's a couple of ways of doing this. One is that you can make the app free, and then ClubExpress will charge you, I think, 40 cents a piece or something like that. And the App Store, Google or Apple, will charge you, I think, 60 cents. Or you can charge your members $1.99 to download the app, which is what I do for members of a particular organization that I manage. And then the App Store gets a certain amount, ClubExpress gets a certain amount, and then your club gets the balance. So this is a way it will have your branding on it. It doesn't say, the ClubExpress app. It would say the name of your app. And I know that some people that are using it like it, especially if they're taking advantage of things like the meetup features and the channel features. Anything else, Erica?
Yes. So there was one question asking if you can change the width of templates for emailings. And normally it's set to a designated width. I do not believe you can modify it unless you use custom CSS that you've created yourself. And then one question, and maybe you'll be able to answer this, Alan, because I'm not familiar enough with the app setup. To change the design or the look and feel of the mobile app itself, I believe it's pretty set in stone, aside from the logo, the splash image, and then I believe there's another aspect to it. If you have specific questions about what you can change, let us know. But a lot of it is pretty set in there.
Yeah. So when you request the mobile app, and there's a small charge for, I think it's like $150 or so, $100. That involves our designers taking your current design and, in effect, translating or sucking it into the app. I don't know how often, I don't know how dynamic that is, but you could always work with our design team to say, okay, this is what I want to see in my app. When I enabled the app on this wood turning site that I administer, it was very, very smooth. But I don't know offhand, what control you have over it.
And then let's see here. There was one other question. The question was if there's a way to tell what template is currently selected or the layout. Normally the template will have a green outline box around it. I do not believe that there is one currently for the layout. I believe that's on
it's the other way around. It's the other way around.
Okay.
When you click on layout, it will show you which layout is currently in use. And I asked that same question the first time I used it. And the answer is, at this time, there is no way of doing that, just because of the mechanism that's being used to pick templates and all of that. We don't have an easy way of recording which template was being used. So no. So if you do choose a template, write it down someplace so that you can go back and choose it again. Because unlike the layout and maybe some other ones that show you what's currently being chosen, templates does not currently have that box. Good question. So let's just kind of wrap up here. So if you want to take a look at the part 1 of this webinar from 2 weeks ago, again, the easiest way to do it is go to the cool stuff page on clubexpress.com, click on webinars, go down to recorded webinars, and click on this first one here, ClubExpress Modifying Website Look and Feel Part 1, and you can watch it on YouTube. So with that, I'm going to wish everybody a good day, and I hope you learned a few things, and we'll see you at the next webinar.